slobs, please. Hey, okay. Hey, all right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Toonkind at 12 FPS. I am Hexabeast, just Hex is perfectly fine. And today I am playing everybody's lovable, angsty teenager, real kind half elf, Barrow. Uh, and I am joined by another member of Barrow's ragtag group of lawless lawmen. Please introduce yourself.
Right. Hi, I'm Raddatoons. I'll be playing Loccan guy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, um, this is all because they've been on the road to New Scribbling.
Mm-hmm.
Saw they were still relatively close to Wardsburg, but now they it's been a while. They haven't been trying to rush it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I'd say so. It's quite warm,
Mm-hmm.
also quite dry
Yeah.
for himself, and this weather.
Barrow does not seem to mind this weather at all. Just FYI, in fact, he seems more comfortable the warmer it gets.
Oh,
Just a fun fact for you.
at the
Wow.
moment, Locken's kind of just yeah.
uh,
Locken's scribbling some stuff down in his sketchbook right now. So
okay. Hey, Loccan, you want to roll a quick perception for me then? Just a quick one. It's fine. Oh, I have to scroll all the way down. Oh god, there we go.
make sure I remember how to use Dice Parser.
Yeah.
Ah,
God, understandable.
I
Uh
didn't miss the.
okay. Okay. Just to see how uh maybe dice parser, please. Okay. So, you do not in fact notice the presence now looming next. He does not notice the presence looming next to him because Barrow has kind of slid up next to him and is just kind of watching him sketch right now quietly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's lock and drawing right now?
Like what Barrow? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
He, but he's kind of drawing like like a map
Okay.
because he probably realized probably get one for them. But honestly, that map is very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like a map, but also there is only one road.
Okay. All right.
Is on either side of the entire map, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't tell if that's just because it's unfinished or because that's literally all there is.
That's concerning. Just oh, that is a actually I think Barrow might even mention something like, is this town is does this map really only consist of one road? And yes, that is his introduction. He does not say anything else.
Lucky kind of jumps in it, like, oh, yo, oh, hey, oops, okay. He takes a moment to like kind of recollect himself after being surprised by the resident villain.
Mm-hmm.
And he glances over and glances back at his map. It's like, um, yeah, that's kind of it. It's like I said, it's a very small town. Uh,
you weren't kidding.
Nope.
And
Money.
huh?
I take good care of it, even if it is small.
And you're sure that this town is gonna be able to handle what we're gonna do to it?
Loccan kind of like the tip of his barrel is kind of,
Uh-huh.
if all goes well, this is supposed to be a show,
Yeah.
so
That
I think we'll be fine.
yeah, that's if all goes well. I get that. I get that. I'm just making sure because thus far my experiences in Einquell have been things not going well. Case in point, and he kind of makes a
Put it
very
this way.
pointed motion at Loccan and everyone like
It,
around.
oh, that is a very good point, but I'm gonna do every. I'm sure you understand that.
I I he kind of just like he kind of doesn't have an answer for that, and that just frustrates him a little more. Just
Loccan can be a bit reckless. Loccan can be reckless, but if he's known for anything, it's being. And this is just his duty as sheriff.
mhm.
He's doing what he does.
He doing what he do best, him do best, and that is this. Yeah, a bit. Loccan can be a bit reckless. Pinky promises with a god. I'm not letting that. I'm not letting you live that down.
When you're oh, I'm trust me, I'm not letting him live that down. When you're only in charge of protecting like 23 people, you get it a little easy. So, he's
Does
like, this is protect the town from. Ha ha
uh-huh.
ha.
Ha 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 ha. Okay. Um Barrow is just okay. All right. I don't have a choice but to trust you know what you're doing. I guess. He it is just dripping with God, this statement is being made under duress, basically. But he just, okay.
Oh, God.
I, all right.
This is back to the like, so you just come here to what else?
n- no, no, actually, Perrin told me you were probably the one to ask about this, so I guess I'm asking. And he reaches into his satchel and you make a quick perception check again for me, Loccan. This one's a low one, but I'm curious.
Oh, he's gonna see it. He's
Oh, he
gonna see
sees
it.
it. Yep, that's a dirty 20. So when Barrow opens his satchel and reaches in, Bro is just kind of hanging out in that satchel. He's just
Oh,
vibing.
that's where that little bot's been.
Oh, yeah, little guy, wanders off, or, you know, would do something unwise if unsupervised, so it's just,
At least he's safe. At
he doesn't seem to mind it.
least he's safe.
He doesn't seem to mind it, and I mean,
I don't know. I don't think. Eh, whatever.
listen, at this point, he's the only one of you that I trust, so. But he says that kind of offhanded, but he's pulling out the headphones that he had from the last FPS with Perrin, and uh he presents them to
Yes.
Loccan.
The
Like,
ones.
the headphones, yeah. He um he holds them out to Loccan and kind of just, I don't know what is going on with, I I can only blame Einquell. Uh I can only blame Einquell magic for being the way it is. But it's doing weird things when I activate the translator. And supposedly you're the one that I talk to for help with magic related things. Excuse me.
Raises an eyebrow slightly, just kind of like looking it over, and specific artifact works. Maybe artifice isn't his particular
Mhm.
time. At the comment of Einquell magic, it's like, oh,
Oop. Can you say that again? You you cut out for me.
oh, like one. I don't know if you specifically made these look like this, but what's the particular issue you're running into?
So, and they're just, so right now they look just like normal headphones. Like, your typical studio headphones. And he pops the cans on
Mm-hmm.
and he goes, "Okay, this is what I'm talking about." And he touches a finger to one of the cans, and you see, like, I don't want to say it's his telltale green magic, because it's just, it just happens to be green, but it sparks. And you see it kind of course through the headphones, and then at the top it coalesces into a pair of cat ears. That.
Talking like blanks before like because like there was a slight mention like cameo last time of like
Yep.
taking a couple of notes on this. So Locken's like getting that recognition. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I see.
that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, it usually doesn't happen with say real contact. Yeah, or magic or whatever.
So then, why is it?
You're not well.
I was. What about me? Be like, why? Why? And that's just. It's just why.
Locken is like, hmm, why is a very I uh, I mean if you ask magic is shot out of my face, I'll be real. So in terms of um
It,
my best guess would just be somebody's gonna find it funny.
what?
Locken like blinks a second, it's like, It's toon magic.
S- I, I, I'm not a toon.
No, the way that, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the whole point of like magic is around an area, and when the entire surrounding area is based on the logic of making, then that's kind of gonna seep into your magic a little. That's the whole thing.
I
But you've probably heard of the rule of funny now.
I mean, I okay, I'm gonna have him roll a quick knowledge. Me rolling knowledge. He who.
I mean, I assumed it was mentioned.
It was. So he does in fact
Maybe
like
he forgot.
he rolled a 13. He's got a fucking +8, so it's fine, but he just I I recall somebody here, or maybe I read it. I I do recall the rule of funny. I it this all back out. It's totally
Mm-hmm.
fine. Where did we leave off? I've already forgotten.
Um, I believe Loccan was asking Barrow if a rule of funny.
Okay, so uh Barrow did in fact does in fact know about the rule of funny. He
Okay.
recalls somebody mentioning it or reading about it, something. It doesn't he knows about it, but he's still thinking and he still looks very frustrated and he just kind of says, "I again, I am not a toon. I I didn't don't think the rule of funny would apply here because then he's just kind of like gesturing to all of himself, just like I'm not a toon. How does toon logic apply to me? Like, is this how it
Loccan,
works here?
Loccan kind of puts a hand to his, like, to the tip of his gun barrel, just kind of like, it might have like a slightly lesser effect on you, considering you probably wouldn't be able to handle something like a more physical combat. But at the same time, like, it's there, it's in the air, if you want to think of it like that. And it's less like a thing that applies to just individuals and more like a rule of nature kind of around here, which hopefully that makes sense. It's like a this sort of thing. I don't know. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say.
I I think I do, but that
If you're looking for a way around it, a lot of the time the best way to deal with it is to just lean into it. Although sometimes there are ways to, getting around it. For instance, if you're like you got ridiculous luck, or if you manage to like twist it in a way that works for you while still being competitive.
hmm.
It's there's weight once you get used to the rule of funny, and you realize that, yes, you're the one being played for the punchline. Then you start trying to work about ways to make other things into the punchline.
So,
It's a lot less about like trying to fight against it and more working with it. Because again, like my kind of magic, it's rule of funny because it's like, I blast whatever the heck I want out of my faith gun. Like, because obviously, that's a thing.
yeah.
The, and he kind of hesitates. It's like, ugh, this is a thing to explain. But it's like I don't just shoot bullet. I could spit like fire, or like acid, or like ice. or even weird monstrosity things. That's something I've
What?
shown in the face before.
I,
Yeah,
I,
it's wild. But again, that's the gag. I shoot everything out of my face, and depending on how wacky it is, it's somebody's gonna find it funny somewhere. I don't know.
Barrow he has got the most intense thinking face going on right now. It looks like it seems to be clicking, like he seems to get it, but also this is very clearly like the rational science brain is now having to comprehend that things are a little more wibbly wobbly here, and he doesn't like that.
Loccan kind of snaps his gloved fingers a couple times, like finally realizing something.
Mm-hmm.
A good way to work around it might be to see what other kinds of side effects are being had on your spells, and then if you can find a common thread between them, then you'll have what some people call their shtick, their their repeated gag. And once you can figure out that sort of theme to how the roll of funny is affecting you, then you can kind of start building things around it. If that helps.
He actually kind of like perks up at that, like, oh, that's actually that's actually a that I didn't think of that. That
Like
hmm.
again, like okay, for example, like bro, all of like any like bro's magic, I'm pretty sure has to do with bro being a little robotic little buddy, and so bro will just like shoot lasers, even though it kind of does the similar thing as magic, or like it'll be like something with mechanical stuff, or with Perrin, it's a lot of like that secret agent stuff. So it's like you learn to really lean into cliches, as it were. Although, depending on the situation, cliches are really easy to break.
Barrow is just, again, he's thinking and he's kind of nodding like, okay, so I hmm.
Now, of course, you've only got the one thing so far. You've got the caddy and the headphones or whatever.
I
I haven't figured out the gimmick for those yet, but
I don't know
again,
either.
that just kind of comes with experimentation.
I just chalked it up to the magic is weird,
I mean, it
and
is.
I yeah, I'm gathering that. He's
uh,
just like he seems very frustrated at that. Just yeah, I'm gathering that. He he's kind of thinking now and like staring at his hands curiously. And
mm-hmm.
oh, excuse me. And he's actually gonna um so just watching his hands, he kind of like starts to kind of just like I don't want to say it's fidget. He starts to fidget kind of with his fingers, and then eventually like lightning starts to like jump between each one. He's basically just casting shocking grasp and kind of like messing with it because it's a cantrip and he can just do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so he starts casting and he's letting it jump between his fingers, and then he what would he have on him that he could electrocute and it not hurt anybody? Let's see here. Oh, okay. And he pulls out uh a pair of goggles. Um, and then he kind of like grabs the goggles with the sparking hand, and they activate and they light up. The lightning in his hands was yellow or white, I guess. Shocking grasp. The minute that it activates on the goggles, it turns green.
So you're, yeah, so you use like shock and grasp as sort of like a power source for your gadgets. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean it's the best way that I know charge them with magic, because magic's what fuels them, and, I mean, I always have lightning, and he wiggles his fingers and more sparks fly from his fingertips.
I'm gonna roll a perception on the goggles
Okay.
just to see if there's like any special. I don't know.
Oh.
Like Loccan's trying to figure out if anything weird's happening to the goggles.
You can also roll Arcana then.
Same modifier. I'll just roll it again.
Yeah. Hey, that's much better. Okay, so you notice that again, they activate, and it's that green color that kind of is permeating through his suit into the goggle, or into the headphones that he's got. You notice he's kind of frowning at that, because clearly he didn't expect the green. And when they do activate, you probably wouldn't notice it like immediately, but the way that they're shaped, if he were to wear them, it would probably make his eyes kind of glow like most animals would when, you shine a light in their eyes.
Oh boy.
So
Loccan's kind of like looking at it, nodding. Like, I see.
what do you see?
Nothing important. Nothing. Just trying to figure out. You didn't seem to expect the green.
Yeah.
I thought that was part of like your magic in general, like sort of magic signature with the green. You didn't exactly plan for that?
No. When I first built this thing, and he gestures to like basically the armor that he's wearing. It was just white, powered by the lightning. That's all. And then I came here and green.
Loccan squints.
What?
He squints with a level of like small concern that you haven't quite noticed yet.
What?
I've heard of real tunes, but I've never heard of it changing color like this.
What?
I don't know what's going on.
I
mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, it could just be a side effect of you being around tunes, or it might be something completely unrelated. I'm honestly not sure.
That is the most unhelpful answer you could have given me.
Well, listen, I'm giving you an unhelpful answer because I need you to help you. X, are you okay?
Yes, I'm sorry. Just that got me for some reason. sorry. Barrow just kind of... Okay, so... working with the assumption that this is just Einquell magic being weird, we can probably assume then that the green is part of this shtick thing that you've mentioned, I guess.
Possibly.
Okay, that's...
You got a notebook, you probably start like taking notes on this sort of thing, right?
He gives you a very indignant look.
Loccan's already got his notebook open. He's like, come on.
Barrow gives you a very indignant look and back into the satchel. I assume Bro just hands him the notebook and he's just, thanks. but he does start scribbling down notes in his journal notebook thing that he's got.
Oh goodness.
And he does ask Loccan to repeat a couple of the things about like how rule of funny isn't like doesn't directly apply to tunes. It's kind of a
It's an environmental thing.
yeah, it's like a force of nature kind of deal, and he's just kind of like writing just a bunch. It all seems very disjointed to look at it. Like if you didn't know what the conversation was, it would make no fucking sense to look at these notes.
Yeah, Loccan doesn't need to understand it. That's Barrow's problem.
Yep. Don't worry, he's got a system. It's very messy, but it works.
So does Loccan. But yeah, so Loccan's kind of like, okay, so things we've got so far in terms of surface. You got the green. That's something. The cat ears on the headphones. I think the goggles were imbued with a slight effect of night vision.
I mean, yes, probably yes. And he pops them on, and that's when like he takes like the headphones are off, but he does pop the goggles on, and you can see his eyes kind of glowing behind like the lenses. Just yes, they're night vision. So, is there anything weird going on here?
Surprisingly reflective.
Huh.
You think that's weird?
I mean, they're goggles. You shouldn't be able to see my eyes through them, so yes.
Okay, then that's another thing to mark off.
Okay. He's takes the goggles off, like staring at them frustrated, like they have also betrayed him.
Loccan's just kind of like remembering the broken helmet that they saw when they first met B.R.O, and he's just kind of like, I wonder how the full helmet would have looked if that had gotten completed now.
Yeah. 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 B.R.O is just okay. That's okay. So this is not something I can fix. This is something I just have to work with. I guess that explains why everything has gone so wonderfully since I got here.
That's a word for it.
yeah, it is.
Don't be so glum. We are helping.
Yes,
sure,
you are.
You didn't think you'd be getting it, but you got us now.
Yeah, he doesn't know if that's a good or a bad thing yet.
Loccan could tell like a bunch of like the teenager involved is like flaring up, and Loccan on the one hand is like, careful step here. On the other hand, Loccan is like, I remember when I was that feisty what like a decade ago.
Yeah. He is he's just like sitting there frustrated, huffy, pouty. he doesn't like that. Yes, you are helping, and I guess I should be thankful that I have help and I'm not sitting, well, I'd probably be out of prison by now, let's be real. But I wasn't in prison at all, which would have put me behind schedule. So I guess I thank you.
I mean, I guess it's debatable if you're behind schedule now or if your schedule's been, tossed off into the ocean.
At this point, that's probably what's happened. Lord knows I've been trying to keep an ear on the news for anything about Sid, but I haven't heard anything yet. Which is good, but also. He
It's
just,
good,
like,
but not what you're
deflates.
looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. I. Mm. Just frustrated.
Just very, very frustrated teenager sounds.
He's just, yep, that's all. He's just making frustrated teen noises, and he puts the goggles back. He hands the goggles back to Bro to put in the bag.
uh,
I admit Agent P helping was a bit of a surprise. You, and he makes a very pointed point at the sheriff badge, is an even bigger surprise.
oh, that.
You.
I mean, I guess considering my line of employment, it's a surprise, but at the same time, I've, da- I've dabbled in some stuff on occasion.
What does that mean?
Um, okay, let's put it this way. I might be the sheriff of New Skrublik, but but I'm less of a lawman and more of a guardian. And when you pay close enough attention to what rules are being enforced, sometimes you learn to distinguish between the rules that are there to protect people and the rules that are there to control people. And sometimes you gotta bend or even break a couple of those rules for the good of everybody else. I've figured that out as I've continued to work like
He
that.
he is
I've done a few thefts in my time.
he is staring at you like your head is no longer a gun. Just what?
Oh, Lockett kind of Lockett's just kind of like got this like little coy grin, like yeah, I've done that, and then he kind of like glances from side to side, and he's like, yeah, I think you can.
What?
And he reaches into one of the gun holsters, which by now you've recognized. You might recognize. I don't know if Barrow would, but this is the hammer space gun
Yeah.
holster, and so I need to roll hammer space.
You do need to roll hammer space.
It's D10, right?
Yep. Are we gonna fumble? Oh,
Oh, that was
almost.
close. That was
Almost.
close. Loccan pulls out, you know, what seems to be just another sheet of paper in his apparently large collection of sheet of papers at this point. And he unfolds it, and it's kind of like a sort of biography of himself. Like there's different like areas filled in with information about himself, but also a list of his gear and his
He's
abilities and
yeah.
his and numbers. It's like
Barrow is just staring at this like, are you writing an autobiography on yourself? Are you showing me your autobiography?
I didn't write this. And he's got this most shit-eating grin on his face as he says that.
Barrow is staring at him like, I. And then he looks
This
back
is
at the
a
paper and looks to
this
Loccan.
is this is a little bit of a less known thing about Toons. Some Toons don't even know it. But you know how in movies there's a script and someone's
Yes.
got to write that script.
Yes.
Well, somewhere way deep in the mythical hierarchy of whatever the heck is going on, Einquell, there are script writers. there are people who kind of like figure out what happens, but also they give us enough freedom to do what we want as long as things kind of go like according to plan. But sometimes things don't. It's weird. I don't quite understand it myself. I just know that I managed to find mine and steal this off of her.
Barrow is, I can only describe it as in as just, he is staring at Loccan, and the more Loccan talks, the more like shocked horror is overtaking just confusion, because the conclusion that he has drawn based on this explanation is you just stole your soul essentially from a god. Is that what you're telling me?
Not to that exact definition, no, but I can understand where you're coming from.
I,
They're not gods. They don't have godly powers.
but they write your life. They're like the fates.
They don't control it. They sort of,
Okay.
or at least they're not supposed to control it.
So they're like archivists?
Yeah, that seems more appropriate.
Okay.
Roll an insight.
Oh boy.
Specifically when B.R.O was asking about controlling.
Well, this is where B.R.O is not great. Yeah, that's
10.
Yeah, it's a 10.
I mean, he definitely said that with like, definitely a serious tone. Like, if they try and go that extra step, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know if B.R.O links anything specific.
Yeah, he probably doesn't. I'm sorry. He's got 8 wisdom. This child
is yeah, no. I went in and I took this out of his possession and I kept it to myself. And I think I learned some things, and honestly, I think it's helped me out on my journey. I think stealing this was for the better. Granted, I wouldn't recommend other toons do this at all. Really, no. But I had my reasons.
B.R.O has his hands clasped in front of him in that fucking SpongeBob pose, just okay. I okay. I have I have one question.
And that is,
Oops, sorry. It how can I word this? How can me the player word this in a way? What? How? You snuck in and stole it. How? Like what? What? You say it was so easily. What?
well, the certain one wasn't easy. I know. It's fun to make it sound like it was easy for the sake of telling it back to you.
I You stole something from what basically amounts to a god. I know you said they aren't. I get that. But you stole from a god.
Yeah, and I pinky promised one too. I think I'm bad at this.
I I still don't understand that whole thing, but promising a you also did that. Yes. What
Oh, poor Barrow. Poor Barrow.
Barrow has his hand in his hands. He's just like I
The laws of reality are falling apart.
this is not a thing in Verona. You don't get to just casually talk to a god on the streets, and you don't get to steal whatever that is. And he now is like motioning to the paper like
Loccan, Loccan's face kind of like he kind of just thinks about it. Does he really want to make this retort? Yeah, he's gonna make this retort.
yep.
Yeah, and probably in Verona, those quote unquote gods don't turn your head into a gun.
I, I what? You have he
Sure,
stopped. He stares at you. What?
sure, call it revenge if you will. But one day I woke up and my head was a gun. I didn't know what happened, and I wanted to figure out what did. So I went looking for my script to see if something went wrong. It was a lot of work. Had to, you know, sneak into some places I wasn't supposed to be. And I can't say I've met the fellow. He wasn't in at the time, but I managed to grab this and get out. And I figured out a couple of things. Like, one, apparently I'm a warlock. Two, this is entirely his fault. And three, if I ever run into that son of a. And then he starts spouting Grawlix a little bit.
Which B.R.O understands Grawlix fucking hilariously enough. He
Yeah.
can't speak it for shit, but he understands it.
If I run into that, what happens?
Yep. It's just like gun cocking noises and clicks.
Yeah, probably. And he kind of like cuts himself off. It's like the least I have to do with that mad artist, the better. But that's the reason I got this. And he clanks a little on his head, like gun head. And that's why I'm dealing with this sort of flavor of magic. You know, shooting magic.
That B.R.O just kind of he looks just so just utterly shocked, but then you start to see things kind of click into place like okay, okay, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, that I okay, yeah. Petty revenge, not petty, but revenge. Yeah, he gets revenge. He
Mm-hmm,
understands
mm-hmm.
revenge. He gets this. And he's just okay, yeah, that I okay. He just okay. He doesn't
Luckin's, Luckin's kind of gauging Barrow's reactions this whole time. He's just kind of like, I have a feeling that things are a lot more, how do I put this, set in stone for your real times. Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay. Yeah. That explains a bit.
There's laws, rules. I because now he's having trouble because how do you just explain something that's just natural? Like, it's like how does a toon explain hammer space? It's just a thing like they
Mm-hmm.
have. Yeah. So how do
Mm-hmm.
you explain something so intrinsic as like when you power something with magic, it just does exactly what it's supposed to do. The magic doesn't do anything funky or weird. It just does what it's supposed to. And you don't the deities don't well they might fuck with you depending on the deity, but like they just don't do this just because, and then you can't just go back and get revenge on them in the meantime. So He's just like, he's having his worldview shook, but he is kind of taking it pretty well, all things considered.
Uh, I think something that might help is that again, this is mostly just an Einquell thing. Like I imagine out in the real kind nations or whatever, you don't have to deal with this, and at the same time, you don't have to deal with it, so you don't really think about it. But here, there's probably a bunch of stuff in real kind that doesn't make sense to us.
I
So,
assume so. Yeah.
so it's like
yeah.
Einquell's a wild place, and when you
Yes.
live there your whole life, you get used to how wild it is, and I kind of just took it for granted considering everything. But after meeting you, it's like, oh, now even I'm realizing how nutty this place
Barrow actually kind of cracks a smile at that.
is. uh,
He just yeah, I I kind of I thought I've read stories about Einquell. I've read a lot about Einquell, trying to, you know, prepare for myself because I've heard the stories about tunes. Uh excuse me. Oh, excuse me, sorry. I had a burp. I I was prepared for something. I don't know what I was prepared for anymore, but this is beyond anything I could have ever conce- conceived.
Loccan kind of Loccan kind of tilts his head, and it's like you heard you read you heard stories
I yes.
like just general stories about like how things are here, just kind of like rumors maybe or something.
I kinda. I mean, I hey, you want to roll insight? He.
Yes. Oh, that's
Oh
good.
damn. Okay, so Barrow is trying to explain this, uh, and he is very clearly. He seems to start a sentence and then abort that and say something else. So, uh, he's just. I mean, I they there's a couple of books about Einquell history are that our archive has in Verona. It's only like one or two. They just give the basic information about tunes are made of magic and something about like belief makes them real or I it
Lockin kind of just thinks on it and nods a bit, like, yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
and
But I think the thing that those stories are missing is every tune's got their own story, and those stories can get wild on their own. So it's
yeah.
like I said, like rule of funny and all like the tune, like tune laws of nature, they're environmental, but they work differently for everybody. And that's kind of what makes it so unpredictable. Is you never know what's gonna happen to a certain tune, or in this case, what might be happening to your magic.
Barrow nods at that and he just I mean he's I read that the way that it was written, it sounded like it was just a cat like it was just a blanket wide thing. So I kind of I assumed, and he kind of shrinks a little at that. Just and now yeah, I'm realizing that's not the case. And
Connor gets
it's
a little pat on the shoulder. It's like, yeah, you're fine.
he
I
he
don't think I think like any real kind who doesn't like who doesn't really understand what's going on here, they are absolutely gonna assume. So I don't blame you for that.
yeah, it's just he kind of seems frustrated at himself because he he just says, "Yeah, but I thought I'd done enough research." Like he says that like quietly, kind of to himself, like he thought he
Uh
was so prepared. He thought, and then he was wrong.
the logic didn't work.
The logic did not work, and he's so angry that his logic is not working.
So determined to stick to a plan.
Yep. He's learning.
Uh,
He's learning. His none of his plans have gone correctly, so he's learning.
yeah, I guess
Oh, go ahead.
uh, Loccan kind of like thinks for a moment. It's like makes you wonder how your sister's holding up with dealing with all this funky tune magic. Then, because I imagine it's affecting her just as much as it's affecting you.
Barrow kind of, yeah. I hope she's doing okay. They
Yeah,
I didn't see her leave. I just heard from the others that she was still around, but I don't know. I maybe she's I don't know.
Lockin just kind of thinks for another second. How much you want to bet she was deliberately using this place's unpredictability to her?
He kind of pauses at that and he thinks.
You know, if nobody, or at least nobody real kind, knows what kind of crazy stuff to expect, then you could you could get away with the wildest stuff if you know manage to be just out of anybody's prediction. I don't know. I obviously I haven't quite figured that out yet myself, but again, everybody's got different talents in terms of understanding this sort of stuff.
Barrow is but you Barrow is now like thinking and he's just that would make sense actually. That would explain why she came here. It would
When the people chasing you are only working on what makes sense, then going to the one place that doesn't make sense makes all the sense.
that that does make that I mean this is utter nonsense. This doesn't make sense, but at the same time this yeah, yes, yeah, this totally makes sense. This is she she of course. Of course that would explain why I haven't she probably couldn't even she's probably been laying low. She's probably been trying to get a hold of everything and figure it all out and
Lockin makes a quiet chuckle. It's like, who knows? Maybe the nonsense will work in such a way where attacking, the town that has thousands of citizens in it didn't do anything to attract her. But then attacking the town that has barely any population to begin with, suddenly that'll be big enough to attract her. Who knows? That barely makes any sense, but you never know in Einquell.
Barrow is kind of he's getting that kind of giddy like excitement from that he had prior, like when you guys were first kind of coming up with this plan, and he's just no that yeah no that huh this huh
Out of
I
character, I want you to know that Lockin is internally just grinning because this is absolutely going to his plan.
yeah you go Loccan, I love you. Barrow is just like having a moment. He's just no, that makes perfect. It would make perfect sense. And even then, just Sid has a calling card. She's got it marked, and she's very protective of that. So if even if like news of these robots attacking Wardsburg came out, she would still probably understand that it's been taken care of and they've moved on, and and if anything else pops up, it would make perfect sense. The small town would get some kind of news out because what else is going to happen in a small town? And that hmm hmm hmm. He's just kind of like
Loccan,
sitting there, like vibrating in place now. Just
Loccan is going to once again place a hand on Barrow's shoulder to kind of stop the vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm taking that as literally as possible. Okay, tone down the rumble sound.
Uh, it's, so Barrow actually kind of like jumps a little when you touch him, and he's just right, sorry, right, okay, uh, okay, okay, yeah. He is like hugging Bro, but he's holding his satchel, but because Bro is in the satchel, he's basically just hugging Bro at this point. He's trying to calm down.
Loccan's gonna back off and give Barrow a minute.
Yeah. Like he's still giddy, but he's calming down from like that and just, oh, you touched me. Okay.
Sorry about that. But yeah, at this point, it's like, yes, today Barrow learns to think like a toon.
Yeah. He's just, okay, so, okay. So if I'm gonna get this stuff to work with me, and he kind of twists his face like he's tasting something gross for a second. I'm gonna need you to help me out here with that one.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Even if it's just making things work like I think they should. Just like, and because he's got the frickin' spell slots right now, just because they should, or just because, excuse me, just because we're not doing anything with them.
Oh yeah, this whole trip is like multiple long rests.
Oh yeah, so he's it's not gonna matter. He actually casts so he casts mirror image on himself, which just creates 3 extra there are now 4 Barrows standing around you. But instead of mimicking your actions like it should, they all kind of start behaving on their own in a weird way. Like they're clearly still like if Barrow starts to run, they all start, like if Barrow shifts one way, they all kind of do shift in that way, but like it's basically like you've got 4 different idle animations going on the same on all of them. If that makes any sense.
Loccan's kind of glancing between them.
They Barrow, the real one speaks. They should not be doing this, and he kind of gestures to just them all kind of idling around. One rolls their eyes at him, like, and another one just like moves their mouth like it's saying something, but no audio comes out.
Real fascinating.
I don't think that's supposed, like,
No, by all logic, that shouldn't be what happens.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that is what happened.
Yeah.
Real interesting.
And he stands up. They all stand up in a different way. One springs to their feet really quickly. One seems to struggle for a hot second.
Loccan's kind of like scrunching his face, trying to see if he can determine a pattern between these. I'm gonna roll.
Yeah.
Again.
That's a 10.
Not so good.
Not so good. The best that you can come up with is that Yeah, this is just Einquell magic clashing with his in a weird way that it probably shouldn't, or that basically that him like trying to channel the Einquell magic is just doing a weird thing. But he dispels the clones and they all vanish again in, well, green.
The green is definitely something that is keeping a careful note
Mm-hmm.
on.
Barrow's. Oh, go ahead.
That definitely seems like at least mildly important
Yeah.
right here.
Barrow does kind of like glance at Loccan. Just, does the green mean anything? Like, does color have a significance?
I mean, not in my experience, but maybe in other
Hmm.
experiences. I mean, I've heard of like color changing tunes. Maybe someone like that might have. But at the same time, yours are all a very consistent color. It's not really a sense of changing color being the whole point of it. It's just a
Yeah.
very consistent color. So I
He
don't
just
know.
kind of. I don't know if the green has any significance. I don't know.
If it has any significance, I can't tell you what
Oh, okay.
that is.
But yeah.
Um, hmm. Lockham thinks for a moment. It's like, should I show you an example of like one of my magic, just so you can kind of get an idea of like maybe comparative? It's definitely a different kind of magic, but at the same time, I help.
He's down to listen. He's always up for a magic demonstration. Yeah.
All right, so Lockham shuffles into his second ammo like gun holster, and he pulls out what looks to be a slightly charred stick, and
Uh
he's
huh.
like, "All right." And let's see. He looks around like the desert landscape, looking for something to shoot at. Just something, something that's not really like just a background
Yeah.
critter or something. Like,
Critter.
yeah,
A
there's
critter.
look. The spell targets a creature. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Fair.
Besides, I won't roll damage for
Okay.
it.
Fine.
So like he finds like a random bird, and he's like, all right. So for me, and then he just bites the stick.
Ha-
Just he bites the stick, and then he takes off his cowboy hat and just cocks the I forget what that part is called, but he
yeah. The
just like
hammer.
cocks the hammer, and then he just focuses on this bird, and then he doesn't even like pull out his neck. You can just see the trigger pull itself as a bright blue lightning bolt fires out of his face, out of his mouth, and he just casts Witch Bolt on this bird.
Barrow is just like he watches and the bird I imagine just becomes crispy for a second before flying away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which Barrow stares at that, just kind of, okay, that's another weird Einquell thing that I didn't expect. But then he looks back to Loccan, just like, you bit the stick in half.
I did.
Do you eat the stick or do you shoot the stick?
Well, the stick is actually an interesting situation because it's a concentration spell, so he just kind of keeps the stick in his cheek until the concentration runs out. So, he like spits out the stick, which is still slightly with a G to break concentration. It's like, eh.
Ha- Barrow lifts up a finger, opens his mouth, closes his mouth, puts the finger back down. Okay.
Let's see, what else are I gonna? And he shuffles around his ammo a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
and he starts to pull out what looks like a little like calamari tentacle, and he like looks at it. It's like, nah, not that one. And he shuffles in again, and
What's that
he
one do?
pulls it. Just being a warlock has its little eldritch traits, as it were, and that's one of them.
Ah,
He
Barrow
fiddles
nods at that.
around.
He knows. He knows about warlocks.
He fiddles around in his ammo compartment, and he finds a sour candy. Ah, this will work. And he pops that in his mouth, just
Mm-hmm.
cocks his gun, and suddenly he spits out what seems to be a poison spray. Well, no, not acid splash. That's the
Acid
wrong stuff.
splash. Yeah.
Yeah, acid splash. But yeah, so he just kind of spits out, a little blob of acid that just lands on the ground.
Huh.
And notably, he doesn't spit out the candy this time because he used it for this.
He used the candy, so it's Barrow is just kind of staring. So it's not quite, but it is kind of like the components for spells because those don't need anything like that. But that's it's like
You know what? You know it's really fun. You can explain away the verbal and somatic components by the verbal being the bang
Yep.
and the somatic being the cocking.
Yep. Yep.
It's like, yeah, he's got all these components.
He doesn't need, but the thing is, some of them don't require material components, and that's what Barrow is like.
That's the part that Barrow's kind of like thinking about.
He's just like, you don't need, but you don't normally need components like that. So, but you use them anyway because it's what
Because
works. Because you fire.
Loccan's like got this dumb grin, like, come on, let's see if you can connect these dots.
Because it's what fits your style. It's what fits your style.
Mm-hmm.
You of course he's like he's having that galaxy brain moment like you you've got a gun for a head. Everyone just, instead of trying to cast spells the normal way, you lean into it, and so you can just
He pulls out a breath mint and just pops it in his mouth. Just you can't tell if he's casting a spell or if he just genuinely wanted a breath mint.
that so it just make you just leaned into it. You just lean into it, and so that everything works. That because just it just works that way.
And he spits out a little cloud of a little ray of frost just
Yeah.
off to the side with the grin on his face.
Barrow is starting to grin as well because it's kind of starting to click finally. Like, okay, okay, okay. I get it. I think I get it. I think I do. I think I get it.
Mhm.
I huh that huh okay.
Of course, not everything works the exact same way. Sometimes, I could just let's see. I know Eldritch Blast is a pretty easy one for me to pull off. And he just kind of like focuses, and he doesn't like put anything in his mouth this time, but he still does like the gun cocking animation. And he still manages to blast out, a couple,
Yeah,
two solid Eldritch Blast beams out of his mouth.
yeah.
And it's like, again, it it's a bit simpler because Eldritch Blast is just a native part of any warlock spell.
Yeah. You don't need to go
But at the
so
same
crazy,
time,
but yeah.
but at the same time, he's still spitting it out of a gun barrel mouth.
Yeah. And so it's still going through those motions, which are arguably still like the same. And it's just, but Barrow is nodding, and now he's like, as he's talking, he's kind of gesturing with his hands as he talks, and he's now like pacing back and forth as he's talking, but he's no, this makes sense. It's just what you just leaned in. It's just like you said. You lean into the aesthetic, so everything you do just kind of focuses around that. And it, why question why question what makes it work when it works? But I don't have anything like that yet, so it's like the magic is trying to figure me out. And he kind of stares at his hands, just, huh.
Loccan kind of thinks about it. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. You're not from around here, so the magic might just not know what to do with you, and that's why it's kind of doing some funky stuff.
Huh. That is fascinating.
Locke just chuckles. It's like, on the one hand, yes, he is still assisting somebody who is trying to find a criminal while doing criminal things himself, and
Mm-hmm.
there is, danger in all this. But at the same time, he can't help but find that, like, just that wow moment somewhat endearing.
It's to make this like less a little more serious, less goofy. Barrow legit looks like the 17-year-old he is right now. He looks like just fascinated, eager, excited, like he learned a thing and it's cool and it's something he never knew before, and Loccan helped him a lot, but he was able to draw that conclusion kind of on his own, and he's just like, whoa.
So much.
Yeah. And he looks at Loccan and he's just like, I. Okay, this is a weird question. Did. Did it take you, like, some time to kind of figure out how to use your magic after? And he gestures to the gun head.
Lockin Lockin quirks his mouth a bit, because this is a bit of a complicated question for him.
Oh. Okay.
Because to be fair, he's all warlock,
Mm-hmm.
but it can't be a warlock without a patron,
Mm-hmm.
and it's evident that, or at least it's evident to Lockin that he didn't get his patron until he got the gun for a head.
Gotcha.
So it's a question of, did he know this intrinsically, or did he know this by learning it? And he
Gotcha.
thinks for a moment. And he thinks back to what life was like before he had the gun for a head.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks like he's thinking incredibly intense. Just trying to think
Is there, like,
how.
gears and smoke and equations flying around?
Definitely the gears and smoke. I wouldn't say the equations.
Okay.
Um, but eventually he just kind of nods. It's like, it took me some time, but I imagine it'll take you longer because of you're not a two.
Barrow kind of nods, like, yeah, I kind of figured that much.
Like we're used to things changing at a moment's notice, and when things change that fast, you learn to adapt fast.
Yeah,
So
Okay. Okay. But I can learn. I can learn, though. That's okay. That seems to be what he was can I learn? Is this a thing I can? And yeah, okay. Okay.
yeah, that's actually, now that I think about it, like in some of the bigger towns, I've seen some. I've probably like passed on some real kind who've been, understood tune magic well enough to be able to use it themselves. So yeah, it's entirely possible for you to learn. You just need some time to get used to it. With how little time you've spent in Einquell, I'm surprised you're not used to it.
I he pouts just
Look, on the one hand, Loccan has like some respect for this kid. On the other hand, Loccan is not afraid to be snarky.
Please snark this child. Yeah, okay. He just grumbles like, okay, yeah. I'm I'm learning more every day. He does not sound pleased. He doesn't sound pleased, but he doesn't sound angry about that. It's just
Yeah, I'm learning more every day, so I guess we're in the same boat there.
yeah. Okay.
Like, I didn't even know Perrin was a member of that Ili organization until we tumbled into that apartment place. So, you know,
Oh gods. I've heard of Ili. Oh my god. I cannot. I still that just I cannot believe Agent
Lo-
fucking B just
Loccan just kind of shrugs. You never know who you're gonna bump into in Einquell.
I am
No,
realizing that.
Loccan kind of thinks for a moment. It's like you watch movies completely off the like out of
Uh
nowhere. Just a question of does Barrow watch movies?
Barrow gives him a look and then very plainly says, I did not know what a movie was until I came here. No.
Ah, okay. In that case, you probably haven't heard. Oh, never mind then. No, it wouldn't make sense.
What okay. You have his attention,
Like
but
Lockin was gonna say something, but at the same time, he's realizing in this particular scenario, this isn't exactly a point where it would make much sense to mention it.
yeah.
It's like, but also the attention hook was great. Just
Yeah. Barrow just
eh.
after he just Verona is very much not like, I mean, it's on the exact opposite side of the planet. It's about as far away as you can get from Einquell. Uh I did not know what most things here were before I came here. So you can imagine seeing a train or these tall cities is alarming, to say the least.
And
And
that kind of gets Lockin thinking a bit. It's really that different?
yes, it
Huh.
and he kind of digs into his bag. Uh he pulls Bro out of the satchel because he needs to dig around for a second. um Sets Bro down, gives him a pat on the head. Uh Digs into his satchel and pulls out a book. And it looks kind. It's I don't want to say it's a kid's book, but it's got a lot of illustrations in it. And he kind of flips it open and just this is basically what Verona looks like. And it's like a story, it's like a heckin' it's one of those, it's like a storybook, but like occasionally there's like a big full page illustration on one page, and then there's lots of words, and then more illustrate like another illustration, and
Yeah,
then
I know exactly what
yeah, yeah. I don't know what the hell that kind of book is called, but that's so he's showing like
I,
he's flipping to like each of the illustrations, and you're looking at what essentially are like old medieval towns, like 1500s, 1600s, but then occasionally there's like the odd little like steampunk flair would be the best way I could describe it, of like piping and like occasional machinery that is very clearly powered by magic, but it's all still very fitting in with that like old image. And there are notably, it's all horse and carriage. It's all like, if that, sometimes people are just riding the horse. Uh, Lots of smaller buildings, like, the most grandiose thing there is the castle on the cliff. So he's showing these to Loccan, and he's just, this is what we have. That is in fact the castle in Verona. Uh,
Loccan kind of like looks at over a bit and is like nodding. Huh. And honestly, I'm starting to think you might have just gotten unlucky with storming Wardsburg, because there's probably a place in Einquell that's a lot closer to what you're used to than that.
I mean, I didn't exactly start in Wardsburg. Wardsburg ended up being the perfect place because it had the material. I started further north. In hmm. He's like trying to remember. I can't remember the port. It was, but my point is, I didn't start in Wardsburg, but uh, yeah, Wardsburg definitely took some getting used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the other thing is you think Wardsburg is the most crazy place here yet? No, you it, like I
No,
saw on that map that you've kind of been to Wardsburg,
kind of.
but you didn't really get into it much.
Yeah.
As it's like you thought it was too, but like at the same time, there's like there's like big bustling cities like that. There's smaller towns. There's some places that look so futuristic you'd swear they were built by outer space aliens. There's some places that look entirely made out of cardboard. Some places that look like they're entirely made out of modeling clay. Maybe even some places that look like they're entirely made out of like air somehow, like it's in a cloud or something. That's entirely possible. And this is all just in Einquell. It's ridiculous.
Barrow had raised a finger and looked like he wanted to say something at the mention of aliens, and then Loccan kept going, and he just calmly put the finger back down. Just, you know what? Nah, it's fine. This might as well happen.
Hey, Locken's kind of like chuckling, like, on the one hand, I could tell you to expect the unexpected in Einquell, but really, all I could really tell you for advice is expect literally anything.
I
And that's like whether it's unexpected, whether it's expected, whether it's beyond either of those.
I think I'm better off expecting nothing and just rolling and trying to just deal with what comes.
That also works. That also works.
Okay. I
Locken Locken kind of chuckles and is like, I haven't told you about the time when I managed to break up a wedding between a royal dog family and a royal cat family, did I?
what?
And Locken's just kind of chuckling. Like, he's gonna start getting into the whole plot of Romeo and Juliet again,
Excellent.
and he's talking about stealing the old juice. And I think this is a good point where it's like the scene kind of fades out as
Yeah,
Locken's telling
absolutely.
this incredibly ridiculous tale of police tape and guard chases and a big faked phantom sort of thing, and it's like,
Absolutely, yes.
and eventually the scene just kind of fades to black on that because Barrow's learning. It'll take some time, but at
Yeah.
the same time, Lockin seems pretty confident. Barrow's starting to understand how to think like a two.
Yup. Yup. He's making progress, and he's getting it slowly but surely.
Uh,
I think that's where we're gonna call it then.
Yeah, that was great.
Yes, thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah.